2020 was a record-setting wildfire year. Colorado had its 3 biggest fires on record, burning hundreds of thousands of acres and hundreds of homes. Even in the dead of winter, we're starting to see new fires start, like one in Los Animas County yesterday that forced some evacuations. Wasn't a total surprise for those who live and work in places at high risk for fires. Foresters and firefighters have long warned about the fire risk from dead trees in Colorado.
Tonight, 9 News reporter Jennifer Meckles and photojournalist Foster Gaines give us a look at one project trying to help manage that danger and maybe prevent a wildfire.
Against a classic Colorado backdrop, snow-capped peaks and blue skies, there's a noisy operation underway on top of Owl Mountain in Jackson County.
We're seeing a processor and a skidder working the wood that's been cut out in the forest.
Forester Carolina Manriquez helps lead this 376-acre project.
Regenerate the forest, reduce wildfire risk, protect this watershed, and create wildlife habitat.
They're cutting down and removing mostly dead trees.
Cleaning the limbs out and then cutting it to length. We want diversity of ages so that the system is more resilient. Again, if a fire comes through and it's a patchy system, that fire will hit the landscape differently. And also, different insects and different disturbances will affect those trees differently depending on how old they are.
We are on one of the logging sites.
In December, foresters led reporters on a tour of logging operations in Jackson County, where dead, beetle-killed trees pose a wildfire risk.
So what we're trying to do with this sale is basically get rid of these dead trees before they fall over and become a major fire hazard. 2020 broke wildfire records. The Cameron Peak and East Troublesome became the state's largest wildfires ever. The scale of the fires is shocking. I mean, even as somebody who's in the field of forestry, we'd never seen fire behavior like that. Shocking, but not a complete surprise, says forester Blair Reinerson. And it's something that people have been talking about in this area for a long time, just how these forests are just waiting for the moment that they're just going to blow up, and it happened this last year. We saw it, and it can happen again. This site is just one example of forest management, a term we have heard a lot lately. With fuel conditions like that, and with drought like we saw this year, you need to have some of these larger scale interventions to sort of defend the landscape and to diversify the age of the forest. Those working on this mountain say the forest is not healthy.
Very poor.
CJ Pittinger is a third-generation logger. He's working on a site on top of Gould Crest.
Well, obviously the dead, and then is the main thing. You know, it should have been managed a long time ago, rather than letting it get to this point where everything is dead, and now there's not enough industry to take care of it.
Compared to other western states, Colorado's timber industry is small, but this wood, dead now for a decade or longer, can still sell. Funding is a major hurdle for forest management. If there wasn't markets for this wood, if CJ wasn't able to justify this treatment with a mill, you would be talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars that you'd have to spend to treat this, and there's just not that funding anywhere. Foresters are quick to say this is only one piece of a much bigger puzzle. In November, the Colorado State Forest Service published the 2020 Action Plan report saying 10% of Colorado's 24 million acres of forest are in need of urgent action to address forest health, wildfire risk, and threats to forested water supply. The cost? An estimated $4.2 billion.
These are very strategically located cuts.
This Jackson County site sits between the burn scars of 2020's biggest fires.
There's a community over the hill that way, and were a fire to come with a prevailing wind, which would be that direction to my right, it could be going through the crowns of these trees, but it's going to reach this opening, and it'll still burn, but it's going to burn with a lot less intensity.
Fires will still happen, the foresters say. They just hope work like this will help slow them down.
It's not going to stop fires from happening. It's not going to stop bad fires, but we can change the intensity of those fires, and we can even change their impacts as they go forward through the landscape.
With photojournalist Foster Gaines, Jennifer Meckles, 9 News.
The Colorado State Forest Service manages 71,000 acres across northern Colorado. Each year they treat 2,000 to 4,000. Some of that logging, some of that smaller scale tree thinning, fuel reduction, and work on private land.